I never thought I'd be the kind of man who needed to lie to be loved. But when you spend years hiding from mirrors, avoiding reflections, and hearing the world remind you that you're too much of everything, too heavy, too quiet, too invisible, sometimes pretending feels safer than being real, so I created someone else. A perfect version of me. His name wasn't mine, his face wasn't mine, but his smile was the one I wished I had. And when he messaged me, when Ethan wrote back, I told myself it was harmless. Just conversation, just fantasy. But then came the calls, the laughter, the late nights that felt too real. And the day he said, "I want to see you in person," my whole world started to crumble, because the man behind the fake photos, the man I'd been hiding for years, was about to be exposed. And I never expected that when the truth came out, love would actually knock on my door. Stay until the very end of this story, because sometimes the lies we tell to protect ourselves lead us straight to the truth we've been running from. If you believe love can see beyond appearances, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This is where the story begins. I wasn't born a liar. Life just taught me that honesty doesn't always get you hugged. My name's Lucas. I'm 34, and I've been obese for as long as I can remember. Not big guy obese, not funny friend obese. The kind of obese that makes people stare when you walk into a restaurant. The kind that makes you learn every way to disappear while still being in the room. For years I'd lived quietly. Work, home, take out, repeat. My phone was the only place I ever felt seen, even if it was through someone else's eyes. One night, sitting in my dark apartment lit only by the glow of the screen, I made the decision that changed everything. I created him. His name was Alex Rivers. 28. Gym body, tattoos. That smirk you only see in confidence and filters. I'd stolen the photos from an old modeling page, one of those accounts that had been inactive for years. The guy in the pictures was everything I wasn't. Sharp jaw, abs. The kind of man people double-tap without thinking. And for the first time, people wanted to talk to me. The messages poured in. Compliments, flirting. Men I could only dream about suddenly calling me hot, handsome, perfect. Every notification felt like a shot of adrenaline. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. Then came Ethan. His first message wasn't about looks. It just said, "You seem real." I stared at it for 10 minutes before replying. "What makes you think that?" He wrote back, "You don't try too hard." If only he knew how hard I'd worked to fake it. For weeks we talked every night. Ethan was a nurse, kind, grounded, funny in a quiet way. He told me about the exhaustion of night shifts, about the patients who made him cry, about his dream of one day opening a clinic for kids. I told him I was a freelance photographer. It wasn't true, but it felt believable enough. The more I lied, the more real it felt. I could hear his laugh through voice notes, his smile in the pauses between messages, and the more I got to know him, the more I hated myself. He'd say things like, "You have this calmness about you. Alex, you make me feel safe." But Alex wasn't real. I was the one behind the keyboard. Sweating, breathing heavily, heart racing at every word. I told myself it was harmless. People catfish all the time. But at night, when I looked in the mirror, my round face, my stretch-marked belly, my tired eyes, I saw what I'd stolen from him. The night he asked to video call, my hand shook. "I want to see you," he said. "I just need to know this is real." I typed, deleted, typed again, then lied. "My camera's broken." He laughed softly. "That's convenient." "I'm shy," I said. "I can wait," he replied. "Just promise me you're real, Alex." I wanted to tell him everything right then. That I was Lucas, not Alex. That the man in the photos was a stranger. That I wasn't the confident, chiseled dream he thought he was falling for. I was a man who couldn't fit into the world he lived in. But the words stuck in my throat. Because when someone like Ethan looks at you, even through a lie, it feels like warmth in a life full of cold. So I said, "I promise." And with that one word, I dug my own grave. Months passed. Our bond deepened. He called me every night after his shifts. Sometimes we'd talk until dawn. I learned the rhythm of his breathing, the way his voice softened when he was half asleep. I fell for him, completely painfully, and then came the text that ended it all. I bought a ticket. "I'm coming to meet you." I froze. My heart stopped. He was flying in 2 days. Every lie, every excuse I'd ever told started crashing around me like glass. I typed, "That's not a good idea." Then deleted it. Typed, "I'm not who you think I am." Deleted again. Finally, I wrote the coward's response. "I'm busy that weekend." He sent a laughing emoji. "Then I'll come the next one." For the next 48 hours, I barely slept. I looked through Alex's photos, trying to imagine a way out, some miracle that could make this make sense. But the only reflection staring back at me was mine, and it wasn't going anywhere. I couldn't stop thinking about what would happen when he saw me. The disgust, the betrayal, the look I'd seen 100 times before, that mix of pity and disappointment. But Ethan wasn't like the others, I told myself. Maybe, just maybe, he'd understand. And when the doorbell rang that Saturday morning, I knew there was no going back. I stood frozen in front of the mirror. I'd dressed in my best clothes. A dark shirt that didn't fit right, jeans that squeezed my stomach, hair combed to the side. My hands were shaking. The doorbell rang again. I walked to the door slowly, each step heavy. My heart thundered so loud it drowned everything else. When I opened it, he was there, Ethan, the man from the calls. The voice I'd fallen asleep to. Real. Standing on my doorstep with a small smile and a cup of coffee in his hand. "Alex," he said. My mouth went dry. "It's Lucas." He blinked, confused. "I'm sorry." "I'm Lucas," I whispered. "I'm the one who's been talking to you." The silence that followed was unbearable. He stared at me for a long time, eyes scanning every inch, every truth. Then finally he said, "You're not who I expected." I felt tears burn my eyes. "I know. I'm sorry, I just wanted to know what it felt like to be loved." He didn't move, didn't speak. Then he set the coffee down on the ground, looked me in the eye and said quietly, "Maybe you should let me decide if I still can." For a full minute we just stood there. Rain was falling behind him in a steady curtain, a soft hiss against the silence between us. I'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times, what I'd say, how I'd explain. But the reality of him standing there, breathing the same air as me, dissolved every line I'd ever practiced. Ethan finally spoke. "Can I come in?" I hesitated. You really want to?" He gave a half shrug. "I came all this way. Might as well meet the man I've been talking to." I stepped aside. My apartment felt smaller with him in it. Too warm, too cluttered, too me. He looked around, quiet, taking in the mismatched furniture, the smell of coffee and laundry detergent. "This is real," he said softly. "Everything about you online was so polished. This is different, ugly." He turned toward me, shaking his head. "No, human." The word hit harder than I expected. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. I kept my hands folded, hiding the tremor in them. "So," I said, "you probably hate me." "I don't know what I feel yet," he admitted. Mostly confused. And yeah, hurt. I deserve that. He studied my face like he was trying to map it to the one he'd known on screen. "Why him?" I swallowed. "Because when I looked at myself, I couldn't imagine anyone wanting what they saw. So I borrowed someone people already wanted. That's not fair to him, to me, to you. I know." He leaned back, exhaling. "You didn't have to be anyone else, Lucas. I liked you. The way you listened, the way you remembered small things. The photos didn't make me laugh at 2 a.m. You did." I looked down. "You liked a voice without a face." He was quiet for a moment. "Maybe, but I came because I needed to see if the heart behind that voice was real." He stayed for an hour. We talked carefully about ordinary things, the weather, his flight, my job. Every so often our eyes met and I could see the storm still behind his calm. When he finally stood to leave, he paused by the door. "I'm not saying this fixes anything," he said, "but I'm glad you told me." "I didn't tell you," I corrected. "You found out." He gave a small, sad smile. Still counts as truth now. After he left, I sat on the couch, staring at the untouched coffee he'd brought me. It was cold, but it smelled like forgiveness trying to happen. 2 days passed. I didn't hear from him. Each hour stretched, filled with regret and questions I couldn't answer. Then on the third night, my phone buzzed. "Ethan, can we talk?" I stared at the screen before replying, "Anytime." 10 minutes later, he was at my door again. No warning, no hesitation. When I opened it, he was holding a paper bag. "I brought dinner," he said. "I figured you'd forget to eat." I wasn't expecting. Exactly. He walked in, setting the bag on the counter. "Stop expecting. Just eat." He unpacked Chinese takeout containers and handed me chopsticks. We ate mostly in silence, the kind that wasn't hostile but fragile. Finally, he said, "You know, when I first saw you, I was angry. Not because you lied, okay, a little because of that, but because I didn't understand why you thought you had to." "I didn't think anyone could love this," I said. Gesturing at myself, he looked at me steadily. "That's not for you to decide." The words lodged in my throat. "You don't get it, Ethan. You walk into a room and people look. I walk in and people look away." He leaned forward. "Then let me be the one who doesn't." Something in my chest cracked open. After dinner, we ended up on the couch. "The movie we'd pretended to watch flickering unnoticed on the TV," he asked quietly. "Was any of it real? The things you said? The feelings?" "All of it," I said. "That's the worst part." "The lies were the only way I could tell the truth." He nodded slowly. "Then maybe we start there." "Start what?" "Whatever this is." But with honesty this time, I blinked. "You're serious?" "I don't know what I'm doing," he admitted with a nervous laugh. "But I know I don't want to throw away something that made me feel seen." I wanted to tell him he was making a mistake, that loving me in real life wouldn't be like loving a voice through a screen. But instead I said, "I don't know how to be someone worth that." He smiled. "Then I'll help you learn." He reached out, his fingers brushing mine. It wasn't romantic, not yet, but it was real, warm, present. Later, when he left again, he stood in the doorway, rain starting up outside. "You still owe me a promise," he said. "What promise?" "That next time when you're scared of being seen, you don't hide. You call me instead." I nodded, unable to speak. He hesitated, then leaned in and kissed my cheek, soft, fleeting, but enough to make the world tilt. "Good night, Lucas," he whispered. When the door closed, I leaned against it, heartbeat racing. A single thought echoing through me. Maybe the truth didn't destroy everything after all. Maybe it was the only thing that could save me. For the first time in years, my apartment didn't feel like a prison. Ethan had been visiting almost every other night, never making promises, never asking for anything except honesty. He brought life back into the space, laughter, the smell of real food, little things like the sound of his keys dropping on the counter. Sometimes we'd watch movies. Sometimes we'd just talk until dawn. There was no romance yet, not really, but there was something heavier, deeper. A quiet tenderness that felt more intimate than any touch. I started to believe I could change. He encouraged me to go outside more, to walk in the park, to meet his friends. "They don't need to know anything," he said gently. "Just be yourself. That's enough." It sounded simple, but when you've spent your whole life hiding, being yourself feels like walking naked into a storm. Still, I tried. It was a Saturday morning when everything came crashing down. I was making breakfast when my phone started buzzing non-stop. Messages, notifications, DMs from people I hadn't spoken to in years. The first one I opened made my stomach drop. "Hey, Lucas. Someone posted about you on Twitter. Is this true?" Attached was a link. My hands trembled as I clicked it. There it was, my fake profile. The same stolen pictures. The same username, the same messages I'd sent to Ethan months ago. Only now it wasn't a secret. Someone had found the original model's page, put two and two together, and posted everything. The tweet read, "This guy catfished men online using my photos for years. He's been lying to people pretending to be me. This is disgusting." And then the comments started flooding in. "Gross. He's probably some creep hiding in his mom's basement. People like this are the reason no one trusts dating apps." I felt sick. The room tilted. My ears rang. It wasn't just humiliation, it was exposure. My name, my city, even screenshots of my conversations. I could almost feel the weight of 1,000 judging eyes through the screen. Then the phone rang. Ethan. I couldn't answer. Not yet. Hours later there was a knock at the door. I didn't have to check who it was. Lucas, Ethan's voice said softly. Please open up. I almost didn't. But when I finally did, he didn't look angry, just worried. I saw, he said quietly. Everyone saw. He nodded. You okay? I laughed bitterly. Do I look okay? He stepped closer. No, but I need you to listen to me. This doesn't change what's real, doesn't it? I said. Now the entire internet knows what I did. What I am. What you were, he corrected. You already told the truth. That's what matters, I shook my head. They don't care about that. They only see a fat liar who couldn't get love any other way. His voice hardened. Don't talk about yourself like that. I'm not wrong, I snapped. You saw those comments. That's who they think I am. And maybe they're right. He took my face in his hands. Look at me. You're not a lie, Lucas. You made mistakes, yes. But you're not the monster they're painting online. Tears burned my eyes. You should leave before this gets worse. I don't want them dragging you into this. I'm already in it, he said simply. Because I chose to be. That night I turned off my phone, my laptop, everything. I sat on the floor while Ethan cooked dinner like nothing had changed. The smell of garlic and rice filled the air. I wanted to tell him to go home, but every time I looked at him I couldn't. At one point he said quietly, You know, the first time I saw your real face, I didn't see what you saw. I saw someone brave enough to tell me the truth, even when it cost him everything. I laughed through the tears. You have a really bad sense of judgment, he smiled. Maybe, but I've been right about you so far. He sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders brushed. For a long moment we didn't speak, and for the first time, silence didn't feel like shame. It felt like safety. Days passed, and the noise online started to fade. The internet had moved on to its next scandal, but the damage lingered. People still recognized me sometimes, a look of curiosity here, a whisper there. I started therapy. Ethan encouraged it. You've spent years apologizing for existing, he said one day. It's time you learn how to stop. Therapy wasn't easy. Talking about self-hate, about growing up being laughed at, about hiding food wrappers like secrets, it stripped me bare. But slowly, painfully, I started to heal, and through it all, Ethan stayed. He never pressured, never pitied. He just stayed. Sometimes he'd draw me, quick sketches on napkins, messy and beautiful. You don't see it, he'd say, showing me the lines and shadows. But this is what I see. And maybe for the first time, I started to believe him, but healing never happens without a test. One evening, as we were leaving the clinic where I had therapy, we ran into him. The model whose photos I'd stolen. He was taller in person. Fit, confident, everything I once pretended to be. He stopped when he saw me. So you're the guy, I froze. I'm sorry. He held up a hand. Don't, I'm not here to yell. I just wanted to see you. I nodded awkwardly, unsure what to say. He looked me up and down, then sighed. You know, when I saw the post, I was pissed. But then I read the messages. The way you wrote. The things you said. It wasn't about me, was it? It was about wanting to be loved. My throat tightened. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. He nodded. I know, just don't do it again. The world's cruel enough to people like us. Don't add to it. Then he walked away, leaving me standing in the parking lot, breathless, broken, and strangely forgiven. Ethan squeezed my hand. See? Not everyone wants to destroy you. I smiled faintly. Maybe not everyone. As we drove home that night, I looked out at the city lights and thought about how strange life was, how a lie had led me to the only person who'd ever seen me completely. Maybe redemption doesn't erase the past. Maybe it just gives it meaning. Things had finally started to feel almost normal again. The noise online had faded, my therapy sessions were helping, and I was learning how to exist without hiding. I wasn't cured. I still hesitated in front of mirrors, still flinched when cameras came out, but for the first time I didn't turn away completely. And Ethan was still there, always. He came over after shifts, sometimes exhausted, sometimes carrying dinner in takeout boxes, sometimes just quiet but present. There was a new kind of closeness between us. Not romantic yet, but deeply intimate. It was in the way he'd rest his head on my shoulder while watching TV, or how he'd reach out without thinking and touch my hand when he laughed. One night, I realized something terrifying and beautiful at the same time. I wasn't in love with Ethan because he saw past my flaws. I was in love with him because he saw them and stayed anyway, but peace never lasts long for people like me. It was a Thursday morning when the first crack appeared. Ethan showed up at my door earlier than usual, his uniform still on, his face unreadable. "I got an offer," he said almost too casually. I blinked. "An offer?" He nodded. "A position at a hospital in Portland. They want me to start next month." My stomach tightened. "Portland? That's across the country." "I know." He sat down, hands clasped, like he was bracing for something. "It's a big opportunity, better pay, better hours, a new start." A new start. The phrase echoed in my head. I knew that tone. I'd used it myself whenever I wanted to leave a part of my life behind. I forced a smile. "That's great, Ethan, really." "Lucas." His voice softened. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Pretend you're fine." I looked down. "What do you want me to say? That I'm scared? That the thought of you leaving feels like losing the only person who ever saw me?" He exhaled. "I don't want to hurt you, I just—" "Then don't go." The words escaped before I could stop them. Silence filled the room. Ethan stared at me for a long moment, then said quietly, "You know I can't make that decision based on us." "Why not?" I said, my voice trembling. "Everything I've done lately, therapy, walking outside, living again, it's all because of you." He shook his head gently. "No, Lucas, you did that. I was just beside you." I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, beside me, for now." He stayed a little longer that morning, helping me make coffee, avoiding the subject. When he finally left, he kissed my forehead before going, the first kiss we'd shared that felt like a goodbye. The next few days were torture. Every conversation was careful, polite, both of us pretending this wasn't the slow unraveling of something fragile. I tried to act normal, but everything reminded me of him. The mug he always used, the sweater he'd left on my chair, the faint smell of his cologne that clung to the couch cushions. My therapist noticed right away. "You're afraid he's leaving you, not just the city," she said. I nodded. "He's the first person who's ever seen me and didn't look away." "And if he goes, then I disappear again." She smiled sadly. "Or you finally learn how to stand on your own." I wanted to believe her, but I didn't know how. A week before his flight, Ethan invited me over for dinner. When I arrived, the apartment was half-packed, boxes stacked by the door, clothes folded neatly into suitcases. My heart sank at the sight. He cooked pasta and tried to keep things light. "You'd love Portland," he said. "It rains almost as much as here." "Yeah," I said quietly. "Except you won't be here." He smiled faintly, setting down his fork. "I'll still call. We'll talk, Lucas." "You don't get it," I said, the words spilling out. "You'll move, meet new people, have new patients, new friends, and I'll still be here. Same job, same apartment, same everything. You'll move on, and I'll just stay." His eyes softened. "You think that's all you are? The man who gets left behind?" I couldn't answer. He reached across the table, taking my hand. "You once told me you wanted to know what it felt like to be loved. Maybe this is how it starts, by trusting that love doesn't vanish when miles get in the way." I wanted to believe him, but my heart had other plans. The night before he left, he came over one last time. No dinner, no jokes, no pretending. Just us. He brought an envelope and handed it to me. "Don't open it until I'm gone." "What is it?" He smiled softly. "You'll know." We stood by the door for a long time, neither of us able to move. The world outside was quiet, the kind of silence that happens before something changes forever. He looked at me, eyes glistening. "Lucas, promise me one thing." "What?" "That you'll keep living like I never left. Keep being honest. Keep choosing yourself." My throat tightened. "And you promise to come back?" He hesitated. "If I can." He kissed me then. Not on the forehead, not on the cheek, on the mouth. Slow, trembling, real. And when he pulled away, I knew that part of me would always stay with him. He left at dawn. I watched his car disappear through the rain, the city swallowing him whole. Hours later, when the silence became unbearable, I opened the envelope. Inside was a small Polaroid, a photo of the two of us sitting on my couch, laughing at something dumb. Below it, in his handwriting, were the words, "You don't need to borrow someone else's face anymore. You're already enough." I held the photo against my chest, tears blurring the edges. He was gone, but his words stayed, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel invisible. I just felt seen. 6 months. That's how long it had been since Ethan left. At first, I counted the days like a prisoner marking time on a wall. One more day without him. One more reminder that love can leave even when it promises to stay. But somewhere between month 3 and month 4, the ache started to dull. Not because I forgot him, but because I started to find myself again. Therapy helped. Routine helped. But mostly, learning to exist without apology helped. I joined a small support group for people living with obesity. It wasn't easy walking into that room for the first time. I could feel the old fear crawling under my skin, the whispers, the judgment, the sense that everyone saw my body before they saw me. But instead of ridicule, I found people who understood. People who'd been laughed at, ignored, or treated like invisible furniture in their own lives. It was in that circle that I realized something important. Shame loses its power when you start talking about it. Week by week, I learned to look people in the eye again. I even started taking photos of myself, unfiltered, unposed, just me. Sometimes I hated what I saw. Sometimes I didn't. That was progress. Ethan and I hadn't spoken since the day he drove away. At first, I'd check my phone every morning expecting a message. After a while, I stopped expecting, but not hoping. It was a Sunday afternoon when the universe decided to test me. I was folding laundry when my phone buzzed. A name flashed across the screen, Ethan. My heart stuttered. I stared at the screen for a full minute before I dared to open the message. "Hey, Lucas, I'm coming back to town for a few days. Can we talk?" My hands started shaking. The words blurred. 6 months of silence, broken in 10 words. I didn't reply right away. I wanted to, but the old fear whispered again, "What if he doesn't like who you've become? What if he just pities you?" I set the phone down and walked away. But that night, lying in bed, I typed 2 words that felt like jumping off a cliff. "Yes, when?" He came 2 days later. I heard the knock before I saw him. My heart raced like it had that first night he'd stood at my door, coffee in hand. I opened it slowly. He looked the same, maybe a little thinner, a little more tired. The faint scar above his eyebrow caught the light. That familiar gentle smile was there, but his eyes carried something heavier. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey," I replied. "You look good," he smiled faintly. "You look happy." I stepped aside to let him in. The apartment hadn't changed much, but it felt different, lighter. Maybe because I'd learned how to breathe inside it. He noticed the photos on the wall, small prints of me, of places I'd started visiting, even one from the support group picnic. "You took these?" he asked. "Yeah, I guess I got tired of hiding from the camera." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm proud of you." We sat at the table, the same spot where we'd shared so many quiet dinners. "So," I said, breaking the tension. "How's Portland?" he sighed. "Good, busy, beautiful, but lonely." "Lonely?" he nodded. "I thought moving would fix everything. That distance would make it easier." But it didn't. Easier to what? "To stop thinking about you." My breath caught. "Ethan," he looked down, rubbing his palms together. "I told myself I was doing the right thing, giving you space to grow. But the truth is, I missed you every single day. I just didn't know how to come back." I felt my chest tighten. "You could have called." I tried, he said. Every time I picked up the phone, I froze. I didn't want to interrupt the new life you were building. I smiled sadly. You were part of the reason I could build it. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us felt charged, too full of everything we hadn't said. Finally, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded paper. I wrote something on the flight here, he said. I didn't know if I'd have the guts to say it out loud. He slid it across the table. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. It wasn't long, just a few sentences, written in his familiar, steady handwriting. You once said you wanted to know what it felt like to be loved. I never stopped loving you, even when I thought I should. I came back to ask if I still can. When I looked up, his eyes were wet. I don't deserve that, I whispered. He shook his head. You don't have to deserve it. You just have to let it happen. He stood, walking around the table, and stopped in front of me. I don't care about the past, Lucas. I don't care about what you looked like or what you did. I care about the man sitting in front of me right now. I swallowed hard. And what if that man's still scared? Then I'll stay until he's not. I felt my walls crumble again, the same ones I'd spent years building, the same ones that kept me alive but alone. And before I could stop myself, I stood and pulled him into me. It wasn't a perfect hug, too tight, too desperate, but it felt like coming home. He whispered against my ear, You smell like coffee again. I laughed through the tears. You still remember that? I remember everything. We stayed like that for a long time until my heartbeat slowed and the noise in my head quieted. When we finally pulled apart, he smiled. Soft, real, the kind that only comes after forgiveness. I'm not leaving this time, he said. I looked at him, half afraid to believe it. You promise? He nodded. If you'll have me. I took his hand, feeling the warmth I'd missed for so long. Then stay. That night, after he'd fallen asleep beside me for the first time in months, I lay awake, watching the rise and fall of his chest. Maybe this wasn't the fairy tale ending I once dreamed of. Maybe it was something better, two imperfect men broken in different ways, choosing each other again despite everything. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a catfish hiding behind someone else's image. I felt like a man finally living his truth, loved, seen, and enough. The morning light spilled through the blinds, pale and gentle, painting golden lines across the sheets. Ethan was still asleep beside me, his chest rising and falling in rhythm with the quiet hum of the city outside. For a few blissful minutes, I just watched him, the way his lashes rested against his skin, the faint smile that lingered like a secret even in sleep. For months, I'd dreamed of this, having him here, not in a voice note or a message, but beside me, real, warm, breathing. Yet the reality was heavier than the fantasy ever was, because real love comes with real fear. What if he woke up one day and realized he'd made a mistake? What if the world saw us together and judged him for choosing me, a man with a past built on lies and a body that still drew whispers? I turned away, pulling the blanket tighter, trying to quiet the voice that never stopped reminding me that good things didn't last. Ethan stirred, blinking awake. You're up early. Couldn't sleep, I said. He reached over, brushing his fingers down my arm. You overthink in the mornings. Bad habit, I muttered. He smiled softly. Then I'll just have to stay awake with you. Over the next few weeks, life settled into a strange kind of peace. Ethan had found a new job at a local clinic, and I'd started volunteering at a community center, helping other people struggling with body image and loneliness. It felt good to give something back, to use the pain I'd carried for years as proof that healing was possible. But peace, as I'd learned, doesn't mean safety. One Friday evening, after a long day at the center, I opened my email to find a subject line that froze my blood. To the liar who stole my photos. The message was from the model, the same man whose pictures I'd once used to catfish Ethan. I hadn't heard from him since our brief encounter months ago, and seeing his name again felt like the past reaching up to drag me under. The email wasn't angry. It was curious. You seem to be doing well. I saw your story online. The interviews, the podcast clip about body image. I guess I just wanted to know. Do you still think about what you did? I closed my laptop immediately, heart racing. I had done a podcast interview, a small one for the support group, talking about shame and self-worth. I never mentioned names, but somehow it had reached him. Ethan noticed my silence when he came home. What's wrong? I told him about the email. He listened, face unreadable, then asked, "What do you want to do?" "I don't know," I said. "I don't want to relive it all again." "Maybe you should reply," he said softly. "Not to defend yourself. Just to close it." I stared at him. "You really think I should talk to him again?" He nodded. "You spent years running from the truth. Maybe this time you end it on your terms." So I wrote back, slowly, carefully. "Yes, I think about it all the time. Not out of guilt, but gratitude. Because it forced me to confront who I was and what I feared most. I can't change what I did, but I can live differently now. Thank you for letting me start over. I didn't expect a response. But the next morning one arrived. Then maybe we both learned something. Take care of yourself, Lucas." I stared at the screen, exhaling a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. It felt like the last ghost from my old life had finally left me. Ethan found me sitting on the balcony later, a mug of coffee in my hands, tears drying on my cheeks. He sat beside me. "You okay?" "I think so," I said. "For the first time, it feels like everything's quiet," he smiled. "That's good quiet or scary quiet?" "Good," I said. "The kind that doesn't come from hiding." He reached for my hand. "You deserve that peace." I turned to look at him, and for a moment, the weight of everything we'd been through, the lies, the distance, the forgiveness, settled between us. "I never thought I'd get this far," I admitted. "To be loved like this." Ethan squeezed my hand. "You didn't have to earn it, Lucas. You just had to stop running from it." The weeks turned into months again, and little by little, I learned to believe in normal. We cooked together. We fought over dishes. We spent lazy Sundays watching bad TV. One night, as rain tapped softly on the windows, Ethan turned to me and said, "Do you ever think about the man you used to be?" "All the time," I said. He was scared, lonely, but I don't hate him anymore. He did what he had to do to survive. He smiled. "That's what I see too." "Yeah? Yet the man who lied to find love ended up teaching me how to love honestly." I laughed, shaking my head. "You make it sound poetic." "It is," he said, "because it's real." That night before bed, I stood in front of the mirror. No filters, no lights angled to hide what I hated. Just me, soft, flawed, and finally at peace. For years I thought beauty was something I had to steal, something that belonged to other men. But looking at myself now, I realized beauty wasn't in perfection. It was in survival. Ethan came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. "See what I see yet?" he whispered. "Not entirely," he smiled. "Then I'll stay until you do." And in that reflection, his arms around me, our faces side by side, I saw something I'd never seen before. Not Alex. Not the fake man I'd built. But Lucas, real, loved enough. Sometimes we lie because we want to be loved. But the truth is, love doesn't need perfection. It needs courage. Lucas learned that the hardest person to forgive isn't the one you lied to. It's the one you used to be. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin the moment we finally stop pretending.